Welcome to this roundtable discussion on building digital community resilience, youth-led solutions for safer online communities. This is a roundtable discussion format, so we won't be having presentations from each of the presenters. We're just going to be having a bit of a discussion here and hopefully get you all involved in the discussion as well. My name's Malcolm Haddon and I head up the community resilience team at Multicultural New South Wales, and among other things, my team delivers the flagship Compact program. We're actually now in our 10th year of the Compact program, and after 2 successful independent program evaluations, the program continues to grow and to expand as the flagship community resilience-based countering violent extremism program in New South Wales. We're actually now in our third 4-year funding cycle, and in this current funding cycle, it's we're looking at a $14.5 million program over this current 4-year funding cycle. And all of our panelists who are joining us today are actually part of the Compact program and part of the Compact Alliance, which is a statewide network of over 65 organisations who are committed to safeguarding social cohesion against hate and division. Dr. Daria Ina, in the middle here, is here today representing ISRA, or the Islamic Sciences and Research Academy, but Daria is also known for her work at Charles Sturt University, particularly well known for her work on the Islamophobia in Australia report, which I think has a gazillion downloads or something. Is that right? In her relationship with the Compact program, Daria is the project lead on the project called Scroll to Action. And she'll tell us in a little while a little bit about her work about building digital community resilience with young people. And I should say, You've picked a kind of friendly session here in a sense, because there's been some pretty kind of dark and kind of ominous things that we've been discussing already today, but we're trying to focus on the solutions and some of the youth-led solutions here as well. Dan Donoghue, to my immediate left, is from the National Online Youth Safety NGO Project Rocket. And Project Rocket has partnered with the Western Sydney Migrant Resource Centre on the Crossroads project, a Compact program initiative that is supporting young people to create safe online and offline spaces. Down the end, we have Tom Waite, who was formerly a community partner on the Compact program during his time at Save the Children Australia. But this year, Tom's actually come and joined my team, where one of his key roles is as the convener of that statewide Compact Alliance. And he supports the Compact Alliance as a robust community of practice and a community resilience network. Tom will share some of his insights drawn from working with Compact Alliance partners from across the network and in supporting their community-led initiatives for Multicultural New South Wales. We were going to be joined by Stan Denea from the National Anti-Racism charity Altogether Now, but unfortunately couldn't make it for personal reasons today. But Tom might speak a little bit to the Altogether Now projects that we're supporting in the online space as well. I'm going to get started, though, just as a way of kind of introducing this discussion around this concept of digital community resilience and to explain what we kind of mean by that, or to kick off a conversation around that theme. I want to briefly explain first what we mean at Multicultural New South Wales by community resilience-based CVE, countering violent extremism. If everyone's okay with that, I'm sure you are in this conference, CVE. Now, I'm going to try and be brief because I've actually had the opportunity at previous Avert symposia to talk in more detailed presentations about our approach and to explain how our approach differs from other approaches to CVE. I often describe it as CVE reconceived. And you can watch the recordings of those previous presentations on the Avert website, which is a very useful resource for practitioners, and I encourage you to all check out the recorded previous symposia sessions and the previous webinar sessions as well. But if I can summarise our approach to what we mean by community resilience-based CVE, hopefully I can cover that in a few key points. The first key point is that the role of Multicultural New South Wales in CVE aligns first and foremost with the core purpose of our agency in promoting social cohesion and community harmony in one of the most culturally diverse states in the world. And the second thing to stress in that sense, why we're working in CVE, is to stress that CVE is fundamentally about social cohesion. And that is because social cohesion is fundamentally what is at stake. Extremists seek to incite fear and hate and division. Extremists thrive on community tensions and seek to create schisms within and between communities, often along racial and religious lines, but increasingly along lines of gender and sexuality, as well as we've been hearing about this morning. Now, I've been making this point for a long time. People have heard me go on about this for a long time, but so it was actually nice to hear the ASIO Director General, Mike Burgess, using exactly the same language in his recent statements on threats to social cohesion, which actually recognises that extremism may not always pose a terrorism threat, but that does not diminish the threat it poses to the social fabric. Okay? And I actually take that point even further by recognising that terrorism itself is only a means to an end, which is to incite fear and sow discord in society. And terrorism is only a rarely used tactic that extremists use to achieve this end. Other tactics include things like online hate, terrifying images online, supremacist rhetoric. They can all achieve the same end. Law enforcement will never be the only response to these problems. These are social problems requiring social policy responses and a whole of society approach. The third point I make, which sometimes sounds controversial, is that prevention is not enough as a response for CVE. While preventing an individual from committing a projected future attack is, of course, critically important, and I leave that really important work in the hands of the specialist agencies that work in that space, the hard reality in the here and now is that we haven't prevented extremism. Extremists are assaulting our social fabric on a 24/7 attack front, especially online. We haven't prevented it. What are we doing in response to the extremism we haven't prevented? So a community resilience-based CVE is not, I want to stress, PVE. It's not prevention. Resilience doesn't mean prevention. We would never say resilience to natural disasters, for instance, can prevent a cyclone or a flood. Okay? And the fact is the flood has already hit, especially when we look at hate and extremism in the online environment. So for the Compact program that we lead and that we're all part of up here, we designed a model of resilience which is actually inspired by disaster resilience, but applied to a social cohesion context. And it runs across the full continuum, like disaster resilience, of preparedness, prevention, response and recovery. This is not a public health model of CVE. It's a resilience model of CVE. And if we accept that the primary threat presented by violent extremism is a threat to social cohesion, what does resilience to violent extremism mean? For us, it means proactively countering the efforts of extremists to divide us as a society. It means proactively strengthening the connections between communities that extremists are seeking to tear apart. It means building coalitions and networks of allies who are as committed to countering hate and division as extremists are to promoting it. Counter communities, I sometimes like to think of it as. And this is what the Compact Alliance is all about. The Compact Alliance is a statewide, in New South Wales, statewide, cross-sector, cross-cultural, whole-of-society network of allies who are committed to countering hate and division. They're also a network of youth practitioners who are working to inspire and empower young people to be part of that collective counter community. We believe that young people, just like the people sitting in this room, share our concern about increasing levels of hate and polarisation, and they want to do something about it. And we're helping them with the skills, the training and the capabilities to create youth-led solutions to these problems. So now to focus on the theme of this symposium around online extremism, who better to develop solutions than young people, the so-called digital natives who have inhabited this environment for their entire lives? And with that, I now want to turn to our panelists and to open up a discussion on this concept of digital community resilience. What does that notion of community resilience look like in online environments? What does community building look like in online environments? By focusing on how our Compact partners are inspiring and empowering young people to be part of the solution in both online and offline contexts. And Daria, if I can start with you, if your mic is working. To get us started, to ease us in a little bit, can you please tell us a little bit about the Scroll to Action project that ISRA is leading under the Compact program?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So Scroll to Action means really doom scrolling and scrolling. We want to really give students the steering wheel and teach them how to take the direction. It really requires digital media resilience coming with education. But you know, they need to really decide the direction and take the direction. It is not about banning or kind of delaying, but also teaching them, because this is part of their life, and we need to really centralize students to drive the change. So that's why it's Scroll to Action, and the program is centralizing students, but also we have an operational plan based on research, looking at the evidence-based digital literacy programs. We came with a project with an operational plan. First, we are working with schools because this is the place for education, but teachers are day-to-day busy with covering the curriculum. It is us as researchers, as community people and activists going and offering them something to strengthen them in the space of digital media and how to navigate through. That's why we are working with schools, and we have independent schools, faith-based schools, and public schools. We have 8 schools in New South Wales, and we are working with Year 9 students because this is the time students start having their personal phones and their pins and passwords. That's why it becomes quite personal device for them. And the research shows that students are shutting themselves down to adult, education, talking about social media, tech, and online world, because these students are tech savvy and they don't want to really listen to lectures from adults when they're not really coping very well in the digital space. That's why we are introducing in this program mentors, role models from university students working with students. So these are our bridges between this generational gap. But also we are doing it as an extracurricular activity, so that after schools they have a project, they start designing a project, and our mentors are visiting schools fortnightly. But also we have an agenda from Common Sense and many other programs. There is a really good digital media literacy program, and we have 4 terms. We are visiting them. At the back of the agenda, we have this curriculum, but again, it is really based on their needs. What they really need is important, so that they are shaping the conversation. We've been talking about open and safe space for students to speak about and speak out. But another thing is, this is very much also the theory of change, or the theory is really based on contact theory. So as you know, the algorithms are really supporting bubbles, living in bubbles, but in real world, we want to bring students out of their bubbles by bringing 80 students from 8 different schools. It means Western Sydney, North Sydney, faith school, secular school, all these students sitting together and doing something about the common problem. This is also important in terms of, finding the common ground and working together. So the logic here is, if we can bring them out of their bubbles in real world, they are getting immune to working with different opinions, working with different people. And when they are kind of imposed the polarization or hate speech online harms that are really kind of bringing or fostering fragmentation, students will really go back to their personal experience of working with all these people. Another thing important in this project is really, we're not approaching students as vulnerable students or vulnerable people. These are the young, brilliant, very tech-savvy, online world-savvy students. They just need some literacy, skills, and direction. That's why the overall project is really about building an ecosystem of support consisting of teachers, mentors, tech companies, advocacy groups, also digital media experts, working with students. And the idea here is, we started with co-designing. So we introduce what we are thinking, and we get the advice from them, what to do and what to avoid. And then the question was, how do you perceive digital media? And they did the sculptures, and we captured the wisdom in the room. So the next question in our co-designing workshop was, how do you see online space in 10 years' time? How would you like to see it? And what is preventing you from seeing that happen? And that was the time they started problems they want to identify. They started identifying, and the question was, what is holding you back? Personal, community, and overall system. And gradually it is like awareness building, but also we came to a point, we had a co-designing project plan where we invited experts, and students started system change, learning with a Mario, kind of an online giant Mario analogy. And the idea was, what are the obstacles? What are the moves? What are the hesitations? And how can we intervene? What are the interventions we can do to kind of tackle the problems? And again, students came up with brilliant ideas, but they said they never thought about how to make a change through this, system change model. And when they decided project planning, we had the experts helping them and asking questions. Now schools came up with projects, interestingly enough, very much similar to the interventions we are talking today. For example, connect to disconnect. They are thinking of starting project in their school with their peers, and throughout the year, it will be along the school. And if they are successful enough, they will start running these programs in other partner schools. So they are leading the change. One of the school is doing, Homebush Boys, online racism education for parents. They said racism starts at home with parents. Again, online bullying, and one school is looking at the logic of the bullying person. One girls' school said, we girls' self-perception. Again, they are trying to make these online safe spaces for students. But again, the thing is, they are doing peer-to-peer. We are not as adults in the program. We are just facilitators. And I believe that educators, but most importantly, academics and experts in these fields are very much needed, because these students are ready to go, and our responsibility is to support them.
Wonderful,
Anyway,
thanks.
That is the
thanks,
project
Daria.
overall.
Well, look, I mean, you've touched on a couple of really key principles that we try to implement within the broader Compact program here. One is that the idea that we don't work with specific communities. We try to bring young people together across cultural, linguistic, and religious differences, and that's really critical. It's actually under our preparedness, model. If extremism is a threat to harmonious community relations, then our best way of preparing and building resilience to that is building stronger relationships and stronger connections, than where we can actually resist that attempt to sow division. The other principle you talked about there is the partnership approach, the cross-sector approach there, which I think has been really critical to Compact. We also don't fund individual organisations or community organisations. We ask grant applicants under our program to actually form partnerships or consortia that actually bring together that cross-sector collaboration to actually try and build capability within community organisations and NGOs as well. And the last one was around that co-design element, because I think that's been really critical, and we're hearing that a lot from our Compact partners around the importance of involving young people. Thanks, Dara. Dan, can you tell us a bit about the project that Project Rocket is delivering in Western Sydney, the Crossroads project?
Really stoked. Like, Project Rocket's a national organisation. We're based in Melbourne, but really stoked to be working with Western Sydney Migrant Resource Centre. In many ways, the Crossroads project has become a conversation project. It's a project that is very much rooted in place, that started when we came together with Western Sydney Migrant Resource Centre, and we said to them, hey, well, let's just actually get a whole group of young people that you work with already together, and let's just talk about what this might be and where this might go. And the most interesting part about that was how the young people really identified that their world was online, but it was also offline, and that for them, for these sort of like 14, 15, 16-year-olds, there is no differentiation. The differentiation that we want to make in those spaces is more a sort of an adult construct. And they spoke about it very specifically in terms of young people saying that they felt like out in the community they were experiencing more racism or a greater level of hate projected towards them, which they, in their mind, attribute directly to the fact that that's become something that's more commonplace online. So through that, we decided, well, there was a clear idea based on some previous work the Western Sydney Migrant Resource Centre had done around doing a digital project, but we said, well, but I think this has to really be based in place. So I'm not going to go through the whole process. Very similar kinds of, co-creation, participatory approaches to obviously a number of the projects that Compact funds. But essentially, our project was really saying to young people, where are the places that you feel safe? Where are the places that you feel unsafe? and helping them and working with them to understand why that was and where that was, and ultimately creating a process with an initial group of young people that was sort of like our pilot and our design of the co-design, if you like, that came to a point of being like, oh, we can create a whole range of digital projects here. So as a result, the first group of young women that went through the project were like, oh, there's conversations that we should be having here just as young women together. And actually we should be filming that and then sharing that online. Really bringing that space of like, let's do something in person, but let's also then make that something that we can do online. And we've since started rolling that out across a whole range of schools and supporting schools to do that in a similar way, so that young people can actually identify and come up with their projects, but not doing it in a way where we actually say, well, where do you live and who are your people and where are you connecting? And how do you strengthen those things that are positive? And how do you reduce those things that are negative? So as a result, one nice part of that story is that in southwestern Sydney, Liverpool is well known for having Liverpool boys and Liverpool girls. Those schools are now actually coming together. And so we're working with both of those schools over the next year, 18 months, to work with the young men and the young women in the process of what is that going to be like and how are we going to connect and join together, which probably, once again, in terms of that community resilience and also that digital community resilience, it's about actually saying, within that broad, crazy, manosphere discussion and all of those kinds of things, what's that going to look like here? What's that going to look like when we bring young men that are sort of have always been educated in that way and young women in another way together?
Thanks, Dan. I'll come back to you in a minute and get some of your insights actually through Project Rocket you've been doing with young people across the country, actually. But to throw to Tom, obviously there are many other compact projects that we could have invited to be on this panel, but we can only fit so many. But in your role as the Compact Alliance convener, you deal with all of the organisations in this network of. With current funding round is 20 partnership projects, but that partnership model that we have means there are 65 organisations across the state delivering these programs for young people across the state. I think we've engaged 80,000 young people so far through the program as well. But Tom, in your role as Compact Alliance convener, and in Stan Danae's absence, I was wondering if you could maybe, as an example of another compact project, tell us a little bit about the work that our partners at All Together now are doing through the Design Against Hate and Agent C programs. Yeah.
Absolutely, and thank you, Malcolm. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's great to be here, both in the capacity as Compact convener, and as Malcolm said, the Compact Alliance is a network of allies who are standing united against hate and division. And as a previous Compact partner, I really valued being a part of the Compact Alliance in a previous role. So I've really seen the power of the Alliance as a robust community of practice for youth practitioners working across a wide range of youth engagement methodologies and projects. And look, I think I just want to share a funny thing. When I was at lunch just now, I was walking past Cynthia and she looked at me and said, "You're a great nodder." And she had seen me across the room, and obviously I was nodding about something, and she said, I'm a nodder as well. I just wanted to say thank you. And what I think I was nodding about on reflection was the solutions that Cynthia was proposing around the spaces in which young people can come together to share their experiences, to co-design solutions, to also inform adults about what the experience of young people is like online and offline. So I think that's where it's so exciting to be here with our Compact partners who are doing amazing work, Israel, whether it's through your participatory conference with young people recently, bringing together experts and young people to co-design solutions, or your online digital resilience building, Dan, and the kind of place-based way that you do that. And the mapping of the kind of the physical spaces where young people feel that sense of safety is a really interesting part of your project. Look, I'm also really pleased to be able to, in Stan's absence, speak to a couple of Compact projects that All Together now run, working in the online and digital space. So All Together now have been a Compact partner for a long time now, over many years. So for those of you who don't know, All Together now are a national not-for-profit established in 2010, and their work is about practice-based, evidence-based projects working with young people and the community to proactively build community resilience against online hate, racism, harmful misinformation. So the first project that I wanted to share a little bit about is the current Compact Partnership project, Design Against Hate. So Altogether Now are really doing a genuine co-design project with young people through their Compact-funded project, Design Against Hate. So with research and everything we've heard today showing that young people are increasingly exposed to online hate, harmful misogyny, and also harmful narratives around sexuality, including anti-LGBTQI+ narratives. Altogether Now have developed the Design Against Hate program, which is working with young people through a series of workshops where young people do effectively that. They come together to co-design community-based strategies and solutions. So young people are proposing solutions, but Altogether Now are recognizing that young people also are particularly well placed with some particular strengths and abilities and capabilities to actually be able to come up with solutions in terms of countering harmful online hate and misinformation and misogyny. So I think really looking to young people as a part of the solution, which is one of the kind of key approaches of the Compact program as a whole. And again, I just wanted to reiterate the Compact program as that whole of society approach to community resilience building. Look, Malcolm, the other project I wanted to talk about was the Agent C project, which is actually currently being delivered. It was first developed in COVID with the rise of misinformation and conspiracy theories online. So the Agent C project was a training program that was developed again with a pilot group and co-designed with young people. But there was a particular demand and need in school-based settings for this project. It was an online delivery. Given increasing demand for the projects, Multicultural New South Wales have entered into a strategic partnership to continue to deliver the Agent C project. And look, again, the Agent C project was initially developed to be an online training, but now doing face-to-face and online delivery. And we're seeing a lot of uptake in both urban, but also in regional areas as well. So that demand for supporting young people to critically engage with online misinformation, conspiracy theories, and fake news, and unpacking that in a safe and supportive space, but then also to build the capability to kind of engage and support early when there is kind of online engagement that is concerning in terms of online conspiracy theories as well.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to swap the order of our pre-scripted questions here and stick with you for a minute, Tom, because obviously the ongoing impact of COVID and everything too. There was some research that was done by Western Sydney University around the COVID conspiracy theories, online conspiracy theories as well, that actually found that it wasn't really young people who were the more vulnerable or at risk of engaging in conspiracies. It was middle-aged and older people. And there's a lot of talk about young people in the CVE context at the moment. And it's almost always framed in terms of young people being at risk or vulnerable as well. But, even if we looked at some of the conspiracy-fueled attacks that we've seen recently, whether it's Paul Punker, Wayambilla, things like this, these have not been young people. These have been middle-aged and older people. Right? So from that perspective, Tom, if it's sometimes the older people are actually the problem, what role can young people then play in that intergenerational context as being part of the solution?
Absolutely. And this is one of the findings that came out of the Agent C program and an evaluation that was completed on the project. And there was a a data point which I thought was relevant here, where so over 1,000 young people were engaged through that project between 2022 to 2024. And of those 1,000 young people, 72% said that through those trainings and online workshops, they were more able to identify it and kind of build the skills and capabilities to recognize misinformation and fake news. But not only that, they were also had more skills and capabilities to have conversations with peers and their families and actually bring that learning to their families and also wider community as well. It's really, I think what you said, Malcolm, before was really pertinent around the framing of the Compact program across kind of the continuum of risk mitigation from preparedness, prevention, response, recovery. And I'm actually reminded of some of my work in another role, working in the disaster response and recovery space as well. So one of my key learnings from a previous role in actually delivering recovery programs with young people after the Black Summer bushfires or the East Coast flooding events was actually that young people are playing a role in disaster response and recovery. They're playing a really important role in their communities. And many young people want to have that role recognized, but also to play more of a role. They see they've got the skills and the capabilities to respond. And a lot of the work I've done in that recovery space, I see in this kind of online space of, as you said, the flood is already here. One of the other projects I just thought I'd mention too was one of our partners, Plan C, who are delivering a project in the Northern Rivers, which is all about building young people as resilient leaders in their own communities, and specifically looking at that disaster setting where, as we know, with Compact, disasters, natural disasters, pandemics are a time where the people that are seeking to divide us as a community along religious, language, or ethnic lines can use those events as an opportunistic way to sow division. One of the projects has actually taken a lot from All Together Now's work. So Plan C are delivering workshops to support young people in identifying misinformation in that disaster setting. But one of the findings they've found as well is that young people are actually incredibly skilled and actually are amazing at picking up on fake news, conspiracy theories. But the education they're doing to their families when they actually take that learning back home and bring those conversations to both their family and the community as well.
Awesome.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please do.
I think what's really interesting about what you say too, though, and it's everyone gets really excited about it, and I think the intention around understanding that young people can lead things is really solid. But co-design and co-creation is actually quite itself somewhat radical in the current concept, because what it's actually saying is, can you please give power to people who are at the very bottom and who are at the ground? And so a lot of these solutions, and I think Compact, and the reason why the Alliance works so well, is that there becomes this shared understanding of like, oh, we have to let go of power. You know, if we're going to allow young people to actually go, we can help you with misinformation. And the same sort of research is evident these days around AI as well, for anyone that's looking at that stuff. Like, young people can spot AI a lot better than adults can. So it's saying not only do we need to co-design, but we need to take that next step so that when that design is there, we actually allow it to flourish. And so at Project Rocket and with any partners that we work with, we really promote that idea that at the baseline, sort of one of the first models of youth participation came from Roger Hart, sort of 1992, and it's this ladder of youth participation. It's not a hierarchy as such, but what's really interesting is the top of that ladder is around youth-initiated or youth-led, adult-supported projects and initiatives versus the rung below that, which is youth-led, youth-run projects. Young people's ideas and what they can be in the world are so much better and so much better supported when you have adults that have the ability to have some humility and to use what knowledge and skills they have, but also to uplift and raise up the kinds of things that you're seeing young people develop. And Thomas, you're talking about there.
Yeah. I'm conscious we want to leave some time for questions from the audience too, but I did have one more question each for Dan and Dario, but now just to follow on from that last point, Dan. So Project Rocket is a national online youth safety organisation. And you've consulted extensively with young people across the country on issues relating to online safety and online harms. It's come up a couple of times in the discussion in the symposium so far around the social media age delay that's coming into effect very shortly, and it's been keeping you guys very busy. In your consultations across the country, what are young people saying about the social media age delay, which is supposedly aimed at protecting young people from online harms?
Young people are saying a lot less than adults are. Adults seem obsessed with this and young people not so much. What we do know is that young people have a sense of their own capacity, and so they think that they will find ways around it or other things. They may or they may not. But what we know is that young people have an imperative to live in the online world, to connect with each other. Often it's just with peers. And once again, I think it's that case of like the best intentions from adults wanting to support young people to keep them safe, but the execution has really probably failed here because it hasn't worked with young people to come up with what that solution might be. Our work at Project Rocket now is focused on supporting those young people who will be online but won't have access to social media, which we may not think they're the best regulated places, but actually compared to a lot of the internet, they're pretty well regulated. So we have a sense that young people are going to go to other places and other spaces, which I'm sure in these contexts, you all know what those sorts of spaces can be. They're actually worse. So we have a strong interest, and we have a couple of different groups of young people together between that 12 and 15 age group who we've already done 2 sessions with in terms of 6 months ago and then 3 months ago, getting a sense of the patterns of their digital lives and where they're living and what they're doing. And we're going to continue to be doing that. It's not necessarily a rigorous academic research process, but it's a process that's going to allow us to shape our school programs and to speak to teachers and to speak to parents to say to them, this is what we are understanding of where young people are and what they're doing. And here's how we're working with them to better understand how to keep them safe. And we're able to then put that information into our school workshops and into the kind of pieces that we do when we're delivering about this content with young people, sort of year 7 to 9.
Yeah, great, thanks, Dan.
Something here in relation to social media ban or delay. So we are also working with young people, and they say we will find other ways. Don't worry. We are brilliant as well. But the problem is not about having social media ban or not. It is really taking young people on board and collaborating with them and working with them. Without which the message is we are thinking on behalf of you, we are acting on behalf of you, and we know what is good for you. So that is really frustrating for students. And again, I give the analogy of like a driver license. Without education, delay is just delaying the problem, but it is not bringing any solution really. What happens is, the analogy I have is like driver license. We have L plate, P plate, and fully licensed students on social media, they can drive. But these students were already fully licensed, and we are taking suspension of their license, and we are telling them, we will give this back to you 2 years later. But again, we are not really investing into like online test, L plate, kind of using and utilizing on social media, using social media under supervision, and then start gradually using with limited, kind of freedom, and then going eventually and gradually into fully licensed without having this period of LP and supervision and learning and teaching. So that doesn't really bring a massive change. It is just delaying the problem. And that is, I think, the frustration students have at the moment.
Oh, hang on. And think about it that's so good and think about it in terms of, a lot of parents are now like, oh, that's solved, that solution solved. But actually what Australian adults have said to young children aged sort of 12 to 15 is, we don't trust you, or we don't think that you belong there, or it's not the best place for you. So what happens when you go to another bulletin board, 4chan or wherever else you want to go, and someone there says, no, actually you belong here. We have a sense of you belonging here. Like all of a sudden the people in the community that should be around these young people saying, we understand technology is important to you. We want to keep you safe. We want to hold you in that place. They've actually been told, no, we're just going to cut it off. You'll be fine. As we head into school holidays,
Yeah, no, that's a really good reminder that, I think speaker from earlier this morning talked about the online environment. It's a social process. It is a community, but which community are you going to make, and which community are you going to be part of? Yeah. Okay, we've got 5 minutes to go. Oh, look at that! Timed well. So I do want to throw it open to anyone who might have any questions for our panelists here over back there. Oh, sorry, do we have the mic to pass around?
Taking on board that L plate, P plate analogy, and looking at sort of developing proactively their digital literacy and critical engagement as skills, do you have a vision or opinion of whether it should be built in when you're partnering with schools into the education curriculum more formally?
I definitely believe that we need to have a law enforcement for digital media literacy, without which really we are just leaving them to find out this world by themselves. But in the meantime, even with this LP example, luckily we are thinking of using within these restrictions. So we need to, for example, give students LinkedIn account. It's a professional account, and we want to train them under supervision as learner plates. They can start showcasing their projects, understand the safe and secure online world. But in the meantime, we can't really suppress their frustration, and their license is suspended without them committing any crime or breaching any traffic or kind of any limitation. So there is frustration, and we can't repair that. That is the problem. But overall, the systemic change is really needed. This education should be, as a government, as a whole society, we need to invest into education, but we can't afford to really make these changes, in the course of time. It will take time, it will take maybe 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. That's why the sense of urgency was, while this advocacy work is going and we are trying to make system or tech companies accountable, we can't afford to lose these children. That's why we need to really invest into education, work around the operational plans of schools and restrictions, and start working with these kids so that we can make change. That is very much similar to pandemic, for example. That was the awareness everyone had. Researchers were in the lab working about the mutilation of the, COVID-19 and what to do, how to do these sterilized environments. And there were people working about sterilizing the environment for safety reasons. But in the meantime, we were investing into educating persons about personal, hygiene, so that the virus is not spreading. And up until now, we had learned that all these, discourses that are the topic of extremism is very much mainstream as well. I have 2 teenagers at home, and they know about black pill. They know about all these, toxic masculinity and many other things. So that is very much mainstream, common, world rhetoric. So what we need to do at this stage, I think, until doing this, advocacy and kind of enforcement, law enforcement, at least we can start working with students, as an ecosystem of parents, and then academics, researchers, and experts. We have the wisdom and experience, and students have insight and brilliance and innovative thinking. So we need to really find ways to come together and work. That is the really sense of urgency. That's why we need to really start working and investing into education while we are working about advocacy, other things that we can make in a systemic level.
Thanks, Daria. We might have time for one quick question. Sorry, where?
1 minute.
1 minute. Oh, yes. Down back there.
Hi there, Nick. Defence. And if I can extend your analogy about the license suspension, we also haven't built them a bus or put on an Uber service or anything like that. I hear good connection and networking laterally. I'm wondering about up and out, like into nationally and into the region. Curious how you're working that way.
Why don't you cover the state
in the 30? Yeah. So we're we're New South Wales government, so state government. So our remit is state at the moment. We've definitely, the compact program's gotten a lot of international interest as a model. You can check out our independent evaluations on our website as well. The Compact Alliance itself, our evaluations are showing is a model for establishing this kind of cross-sector community of practice that other government programs could potentially look at as well. All of my national colleagues in the CVE space have heard me bang on about compacts before, so there certainly should be awareness around it there. And I think that's time. But I'd like to thank my panelists, first of all, for joining us, and thank you all for joining us here today.